What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are here with some Detroit Lions news. We're back with another episode of Lions Latest as the Lions have named their new offensive coordinator. The news is in, so let's get it started.
The city's been down and it found a way to get up. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, all right? And we're going to stand up. And then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. We're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
And welcome everybody to the video. Glad you guys are here, and we are here with some Lions news. So I know the title spoiled it for you, so you already know who I'm going to say. So I don't really know why I do this. I try to build it up as if you didn't know, like you didn't read the title or you didn't see the thumbnail. So I know you already know who we're going to talk about, but that's okay. I'm still going to build it up just a little bit because that's what we do around here. And this is one of the decisions that I was hoping the Lions would make relatively early before we got too far into free agency and the draft and things like that, just to kind of know who your offensive coordinator is going to be. I think the coaching staff for the Lions is really a strength of this team on both sides of the ball, but specifically when you're thinking about this offense and kind of the crazy year, the wild ride that they went through, much improved in the second half of the season. Figuring that out, I thought was extremely important for everybody involved. You know, that's the passing game. That's Jared Goff. That's the run game. Figuring out, okay, now what else do we need? I thought that part was going to be very important that the Lions would get that done. The offseason plan for the Lions, and that was the first thing we had, is figure out who your offensive coordinator is going to be. The Lions have named their new offensive coordinator after Anthony Lynn and the Lions parted ways. It's like they mutually agreed to part ways. You know, he came here thinking that he was going to be the offensive coordinator at the time when he really started losing his role. And we saw guys like Ben Johnson emerge. The Lions didn't win a game. They were 0-8. That was heading into the bye week. It was a really rough time. And I'll admit, you know, he didn't have all the weapons that we had at our disposal in the second half of the season. But at that time, Dan Campbell wanted to make a change, so he took over the play calling. And for Anthony Lynn, that's what he thought his role was going to be with the Lions. So it's understandable why he didn't stick around because, you know, that's what he came here to do. But you do appreciate that you didn't really hear anything from Anthony Lynn. He stuck around. He continued to help in every way that he could. He was just no longer the play caller. So it was kind of assumed that he wasn't going to be here the next season. I believe he's with the San Francisco 49ers as their offensive assistant. So congratulations, Anthony Lynn. You know, he'll fit in well there. I mean, he's a run game guy, and San Fran runs the ball pretty well. I think that's a good addition for them. But the Lions need an offensive coordinator, and they have named their new offensive coordinator. And I'm going to be honest, I'm very happy about this. I'm really excited that this is the move the Lions decided to make because I feel like this guy has earned it. So the Lions have named Ben Johnson their offensive coordinator. Okay, who is Ben Johnson? Well, you probably know who he is because we talked about him a ton in the second half of the season. Very big part of the passing game when Dan Campbell took over play calling. So Campbell takes over play calling. Ben Johnson emerges as a very big part of the passing game in the second half of the season as Anthony Lynn is no longer the offensive coordinator. It kind of left him that door open to emerge into a much bigger role. Anthony Lynn being a run game guy, you know, that's really what he knows. Not to say he doesn't understand passing the ball, but he's a run game guy. I mean, if you look at his background, he's a running backs coach. That's what he knows. That's his specialty. So we needed some help in the pass game because it wasn't very good. And again, we had some extra weapons which helped. Josh Reynolds, Taylor Decker, those two things were gigantic for us. But Ben Johnson was the guy that was much more involved with our passing game to close the season. So the Lions now, after Senior Bowl week and having him be the offensive coordinator in their last Senior Bowl game, have decided to promote him to that position. Now, I want to make it clear that I have not heard whether or not Dan Campbell is going to call plays. I'm sure we may know soon, but I could really see both sides of this. I could see him deciding not to call plays. That way he can stay involved with everything else because that was his biggest concern is he doesn't want to get too caught up in the offense so that he's taking less time to spend with the defense and the special teams. And according to Ben Johnson, this is how he put it. It's really Dan Campbell's vision. It's playing out Campbell's vision of the offense, the defense, the special teams. So I think with this hiring, this promotion from within, a guy that you saw work it at the Senior Bowl, you may have felt like, okay, he's comfortable doing this. We can trust him. He understands what we want to do. They feel very confident allowing him to call plays now that he's already been within the system and how much he helped them last season and how much Jared Goff thrived working with Ben Johnson, and he may trust Ben Johnson to take over that role versus bringing in someone else. And not to say that that would have been a bad idea to bring in somebody else, especially a guy that's proven somewhere else as an offensive coordinator in the past, but it's still a new guy. Like Anthony Lynn was proven as a run game mind. We thought that would mesh really well Not to say it was all his fault, but we know we were really struggling offensively. And ultimately just did not work out between the two. So to promote a guy from within that you really just got results from when he was much more involved. I mean, we don't know exactly how much more involved he was, but from everything we've heard, he was a very big part of that pass game. We've heard it from Goff. We've heard it from Campbell. We've heard it from Mark Brunell. They've all talked about the impact that he had on this offense. So I actually really like the hire.
More than anything, just a collaborative effort of the whole coaching staff being on the same page here in the passing game, between ideas, between installing it, execution. We're all taking accountability for that. So from my own side of it, it's maybe a little bit more hands-on with a couple different position groups, both the receivers and quarterbacks and running backs. I mean, it's everything.
There's also the side that Dan Campbell could continue to call plays, because this is kind of what was going on last season anyway, when you had Anthony Lynn more just being kind of the run game guy. You would have went out and hired a proven offensive coordinator that's been an offensive coordinator, and even though the list was kind of getting small, I mean, I think today Pep Hamilton was hired, so that was one of those guys that were proven. The list was kind of getting small of guys that were already offensive coordinators. However, if you would have done that, that kind of closed the door a little bit for Dan Campbell to still be the play caller, because they're probably going to come in and call plays. Now that you have a guy that's never been the play caller, he can fill into that role like he was kind of last year, maybe a little bit more, but not be the play caller if you want him to. It's a little bit different than hiring a guy that's done it before. I think it leaves that door open a little bit more. So Campbell could continue to call plays, because that's kind of what was happening last season, and clearly they worked well together. With whatever role he specifically had last season, it worked well together, and we saw the pass game really improve. And I love the way that Jared Goff put this. He actually brought up Sean McVay in the same sentence, and he said this: spending time with Sean McVay and now my time with Ben Johnson, it really just tells you how much of an impact Ben Johnson actually had, because we don't really know, but when your quarterback says with Ben Johnson, it tells you how much he was actually involved in that part of the offense. Neither of those guys are afraid to try new things. They're not afraid to try different things. They are creative offensively. Now that Ben Johnson is the new offensive coordinator, let's do a quick little background on Ben Johnson, just to how he got here, you know, what his experience is in the NFL, like we would do with any new offensive coordinator hiring. Now, we've went through this before, specifically in the offensive coordinator candidates video, so I won't spend too much time on this, but I do just want to take a quick little refresh on his path to getting here. What is his background? What does he know? And how he can help us offensively based on what he's done in the past. So it's one thing that actually Mark Brunell brought up, is that the guy has 10 years of coaching experience, 10 years, and he's only 35 years old. He may be 36 now, I don't know. But by the time Mark Brunell said that, he was only 35 years old, and he already had 10 years of coaching experience. And when you look at where he's been and what he's done, definitely has enough experience to be an offensive coordinator based on other guys when they're finally promoted to the offensive coordinator position. You look at a guy like Anthony Lynn, a lot of his background was being a running game coach, and then he ultimately became an offensive coordinator. And now you look at a guy like Ben Johnson, he's done a lot of things, worked with a lot of different positions offensively, starting at Boston College as a grad assistant, and then of course becoming the tight ends coach. Now I guess you could possibly call that his specialty too, because that's what he was with the Lions before now becoming the offensive coordinator. So him and Dan Campbell, they got a mesh. They both love tight ends. But then you had him with the Miami Dolphins, and with Miami, he started as an offensive assistant, then he was a quarterback assistant coach, and then he ultimately became their tight end coach. Now that became a thing in 2015. What's interesting there is that would mean that there was an overlap with Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson with their time in Miami. Ben Johnson ended up filling out Dan Campbell's position when Dan Campbell became the interim head coach for the Miami Dolphins in that 2015 season. Now, I'll be honest, when you look at the statistics from when he was the tight end coach, when he was the receiver coach in 2018, you can't say they really improved when he was that positional coach. I know there's a lot more that goes into it. It was also kind of a mess when he was there, just at the top. I mean, you had Dan Campbell. He becomes the interim head coach 4 games into the season. They end up firing their offensive coordinator, Bill Lazor. They fired the guy because he wasn't doing kind of what Dan Campbell wanted to do. He wasn't running the ball as much as Dan Campbell wanted him to. I mean, how often does an interim head coach fire an offensive coordinator? I guess we did fire a coach with our interim head coach, didn't we? Yeah, I think we did do that. But it doesn't happen a ton, and that happened. And then when Adam Gase came in, we know that didn't last very long. And Adam Gase came in and became the new coach of the team. He was able to keep a job with Miami Dolphins, which does stick out. Usually that's always a good sign when guys are able to stay through regime changes, because at multiple positions they made changes. They brought a new offensive coordinator. They brought a new running backs coach. They made changes. I think 5 of their 8 offensive coaches changed, but he stuck around. Actually, they promoted him from the assistant wide receiver coach to the head wide receiver coach, and then they hired a new assistant receiver coach. So that does stick out. That's something I will point to. But at the same time, just seeing that he's kind of coached a lot of different positions, tight ends, receivers. He's a former quarterback. He was a North Carolina quarterback, and then he's worked with quarterbacks as well. So he's kind of got a little touch and all all of the groups of the passing game. Then he lands with the Detroit Lions. He starts off as their offensive quality control coach, and in his second season, he becomes our tight end coach. Now, Hockenson took a pretty major jump from his rookie season to his second year, which is what you usually see historically from tight ends, is that's usually when the jump takes place. And he took a huge jump. He went from like 367 yards to 723 yards in his second season. And then he remained at that position in 2021 with, again, another regime change. So now Dan Campbell comes in and he keeps his job with the Detroit Lions. There's a lot of moving parts. New offensive coordinator, new running backs coach, a lot of moving pieces, yet they keep Ben Johnson around. And now here we are a year into it, and he's the Lions offensive coordinator. So I think it says something about the guy that he's able to continue to keep positions when regimes change. And one thing that he's pointed to is that he's gotten to work with a lot of different offensive coordinators. I mean, you think about it, Bill Lazor, Anthony Lynn, of course, those two. Zach Taylor, he's worked with Zach Taylor as well. Adam Gase, he's worked with a lot of different offensive coordinators. He's like, I could take, one thing from each of those guys. And then he also brought up the creativity, because that's what everybody talks about. Mark Riddell, he's very creative. Goff, he's very creative. St. Brown, we love the creativity. We love to keep seeing it. I think when everybody's saying that, it tells you how much you lacked creativity. And again, we did miss some pieces, but how much you lack creativity in your first half of the season when players continue to just bring that up over and over. All of a sudden, when this guy starts having a bigger role. But I think what he said makes a lot of sense. He said, Anthony Lynn told me this back in the springtime. Every play has been seen in the National Football League. So it's not that you're going to necessarily throw something that they haven't seen before. That's going to, be like, oh, snap, what are they doing? He said it's all about the timing of it. And it's really finding that rhythm. And that's something that the Lions were able to do, was find that rhythm. And it helps because it was on both sides of the ball, but there was rhythm. I mean, the Lions scored 20 points in the first half against Minnesota. They didn't do that since week 1. I mean, it was a very long stretch where the Lions were struggling to find any sort of rhythm. And again, having a top receiver, getting your tackle back was a very huge part of that, but it's the timing of certain play calls, and being a former quarterback may have helped him. Johnson was being praised for his job when he was talking about this, and I think what Ben Johnson was trying to do was kind of just show more love to Dan Campbell, because he's talking about the timing. Of course, as Ben Johnson is not calling plays. Now, they said maybe he called a couple plays here and there, but if he's not the guy that's constantly calling plays from down to down, timing then would be thrown to Dan Campbell, right? I mean, that would be the guy with the timing. So he does make a good point that yes, they have seen everything in the timing, but there still is that creative side to bring the best out of players, to put them in positions where they can be successful. Specifically, think about a receiver. What spots can we put him in that he can also succeed in to bring the most out of it? You can try to move guys to different spots, but they may not be successful in that role. And we saw changes like moving St. Brown to more of the Z receiver position when they needed outside receiver help. So he was showing more love, I think, to Dan Campbell there, trying to kind of push the praise off of him and give it to Dan Campbell. But again, if you want to talk about why Dan Campbell could continue to call plays, if it is about timing, because like Ben Johnson is saying, well, maybe Dan Campbell continues to call plays and they just continue to work together that way. I'm sure Ben Johnson will be cool with it, and they've already had those conversations. So maybe they already know, but they just haven't told us yet. And what I really like about this hiring, just with the statistics aside for a second, what I really like is I think this is beneficial for a guy like Jared Goff. I mean, the guy earned this job. I feel like he's earned it. See, if he was as involved as we believe that he was, and we were told that he was, when Anthony Lynn kind of stepped down and had a small role, and he was that involved in the passing game, which I think we all believe that he was from what we've been being told, he's earned this job. He's earned this opportunity. No, he's not been an offensive coordinator before, but when you think about it, the amount of time that he spent with Dan Campbell in Miami, which he brought up, he said, I've spent a long time. I've known Dan Campbell for a very long time. I think going back to 2012 when he first got there, Dan Campbell was there. So he knew him for a very long time. He says, we see things very alike. Sounds very similar to what they say about Campbell and Brad Holmes on what their vision is. So to have a guy like that you can trust, that sees things the same way you do, but also to me earned this job because we got better. I mean, we'll get into the statistics in 1 second, but this is something that Dan Campbell told us. He said this. He said, I think everything's got to start with, I think somewhat, me deciding what I want to do. Now, this is when he was talking about deciding whether or not he wants to call plays. Do I want to continue to call? Campbell said, it's what is best for us and as a team. And I need time to think about that. Now, I will say this. Ben Johnson has done a heck of a job for us. I will say that and kind of leave it at that, if you will. All right. So I feel like this guy earned the job just as much as any other guy that's just been an assistant. I mean, if you're going to go hire a guy that's never been an OC before, the guy's earned it just as much as those guys have. Sticking through different regimes. How much our offense changed? You got a direct glimpse of that. And then, of course, to coach the Senior Bowl where you got to see him in action. And he said, me and Dan Campbell have had multiple discussions about that. So we've talked about it. So maybe that was one of the guys that he met with when he said he was going to be interviewing people during the Senior Bowl week. May have just met with Ben Johnson and been like, okay, let's talk about this. Should you be the next offensive coordinator? So maybe it was in-house options that he was interviewing. So I feel like he is just as qualified as anybody else. Now, if you hire an experienced OC, again, it's a different situation, but that doesn't guarantee it'll work and you'll be on the same wavelength, because again, we saw with Anthony Lynn, it just necessarily didn't click. We didn't find that rhythm offensively. But I also like the fact that the players thrived in this. I mean, I think this is really nice for your quarterback. When you think about guys, like you think about us in the past, in our past regimes, and you constantly had turnover in your staffs, and you're always going to have that at coordinator positions if you're successful. But we weren't even successful. We just constantly had turnover because we couldn't find coordinators. We didn't know who we were going with, right? I mean, look at the defensive side when Patricia was here, right? 1 year it's Paul Pasqualoni. The very next year it's Corey Undlin. You just have this constant change. Now, again, it's still Patricia's vision, but you're not having this same guy that's relaying the same message to you. And I think what we saw is that Goff was very comfortable. And of course, he played his best football with Ben Johnson. He said this: he's a stud. I can lean on him with any questions I have. He said I could see him calling plays one day. Now let's throw up the statistics, let's kind of dive into this a little bit. And you've seen these stats before. First off, the Lions averaged 4.2 more points per game after the bye week. And again, I have to stress that adding the tackle and getting Josh Reynolds were a very big part of that, but it still is improvement. They went 3-5-1 through that span. Goff didn't play in all those games. After the bye week, the Lions had a winning record with Jared Goff. They were 3-2-1, would have been 4-2 if they would have made the kick against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So much more successful in terms of points. You can see the statistics here. All right, Jared Goff was a completely different guy with Ben Johnson in the second half of the season. But what really shows up to me also is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Okay, I don't think we give enough credit to how much this coaching staff should be credited for Amon-Ra St. Brown and what he was able to do week in and week out. I mean, think about it, right? You're an opposing defensive coordinator. You're looking at the Lions. What are you saying to yourself? Okay, how do we slow down this offense? Take out St. Brown. I mean, that's what we got to do. It's not like anything else is really scaring you. We missed Hockenson because of injuries. Swift wasn't always there. Jamal wasn't always there. Josh Reynolds was our outside receiver. Now, those respect Josh Reynolds. I liked him. He played well. But when other teams are looking at you got to be thinking to yourself, let's just take out St. Brown. But the ability to not allow teams basically to take out St. Brown, to move him around, put him in different spots, to find a way to get him involved. And we saw it in the Cardinals game, putting him behind the line of scrimmage, hiding him just like Justin Jefferson, playing him more at the Z receiver position, which is one thing they talked about heading into the bye week because they needed outside receiver help, to just find different ways to continue to get him involved so that he went on that crazy streak of receptions and yards and he's breaking all these records. That's impressive because that's really the one guy you had to focus on out of anybody in the pass game was him, and you couldn't slow him down. Now imagine throwing another weapon into that, right? It just shows you how much and how important the timing is and finding that rhythm with your offense and really putting your players in the best spot to be successful. I mean, it was clear as day when you watched the film that Jared Goff and Tim Boyle, but specifically Jared Goff, because we saw him for the entire season, he was much less hesitant, I would say, in the second half of the season. He knew where to go with the football even when pressure was there. And the first play that really stuck out was the touchdown against the Arizona Cardinals, where he avoids a stack, steps up and throws a touchdown. Really nice ball. But he knew where to go with the football, right? He knew where we were looking to get the ball to. See him, he was throwing the spaces in the defense. There was much more anticipation rather than the first half of the season where it seemed like there was much less of that. And when you know you're confident with where you're going to throw the football and where the ball needs to get to, you can play much faster, right? You play much faster. You're not hesitating. You're taking less sacks. And it led to that rhythm because the ball seemed to know where it was supposed to go. You may remember the first play that really started getting a lot of attention on was when the Lions threw the touchdown pass to Brock Ray. And he was credited for being the guy that decided to add the little motion element and then, of course, the pulling guard to really sell the play fake here. And you could see Jared Goff couldn't get the ball out of his hands quick enough when he threw this touchdown. It's those little things. And I think he actually said that he comes up with his creative ideas in the shower. It's true. I mean, you do. You come up with some good ideas when you stand in there in the shower. I don't know. Some people take cold showers. I don't know how you do that. I know. Okay, let's not get into shower talk. But anyways, it's plays like that. The thing that I harped on at one point when we were going through the film was that every motion the Lions seemed to be running in the second half of the season seemed to have a reason for it. There was a reason that the Lions were running some sort of motion to allow Jared Goff to see something, to get somebody open, and it was really just this drive that stuck out to me. This is the last week of the season. You're playing the Packers. This entire drive and the amount of times that you hit St. Brown over and over and over, and they can't stop it. But look at all the different spots that he's lining up: outside, inside, in line with the tight ends. Just those different positions that continue to put him at different spots, get him open. I mean, this first play, it looks like some sort of breakdown here. It looks like cover 2 man, just straight up cover 2 man. You see the initial motion, which shows man coverage. Everybody else is manned up, but for some reason, this cornerback lets go of Amon-Ra St. Brown, and the safety has to jump down and make this play. But notice how Jared Goff moves the pocket. He's moving the pocket much better. I don't have a statistic for that, but I can tell you from the eye test, he was moving the pocket way better in the second half of the season. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with knowing where you're going with the ball. This time, he's in line. This time, he's on the line of scrimmage. And you can see just how fast Goff gets this ball. I mean, he's throwing this ball before he even clears the linebacker. He's just anticipating this window. There is no hesitation. Look at all the eye candy on this play. So you're also going to pull the right guard, watch Big V and how it brings down the linebackers. Also notice St. Brown and Brock Wright sell that they're blocking. St. Brown, look at him there. See how he looks like he's blocking? Now the linebackers are too far sucked in at this point where Goff's going to be able to get off this pass over the middle right behind them. There's pressure coming in because, yeah, I mean, we did get our tackles back, but in this particular situation, Penei Sewell wasn't out there, so you got Matt Nelson at right tackle. Your center's not out there, so you got your center getting beat up, as we saw at times this season, because this wasn't Evan Brown either. This was actually Ryan McCollum. So there's heat, but you can see he knows where he's going with the ball. There is no hold it, take a sack. Attacking this coverage, confident when I'm throwing the football. And even some of them that didn't work out. Now, I remember I think we did this early in the season too, and look, I'm not here to like bash on Lynn, because I think Lynn did some good stuff for us. But even those plays that don't work out, again, you get this motion. You bring out Swift out of the backfield. Now, sometimes that triggers, oh snap, are they running that, HB screen? Or are they going to throw it right out to the flats? But it also tells you man coverage as soon as the linebacker runs with him. So immediately Goff, 3-step drop, quickly looks right, comes back to the left side. We saw this a few times. Sometimes it worked. It worked on a TD to Hawk in the Vikings game. This time it didn't to Josh Reynolds. But you know where you're going with the ball. He doesn't even have to see that. There was times where it's like, man, he's got to see everything coming out of the break. He's not even looking. You get your 2-3 steps, you move the safety, and you come right back to your guy because you know it's man coverage and you know he's going to get the inside leverage. This time didn't work, but it's things like that, just playing a tick faster. In the NFL, everything is about timing. Everything. We've harped on so much how Goff is a timing, on-schedule, rhythm passer when we got him this offseason through a trade. So when everything's on rhythm, timing is good. The ball placement all of a sudden starts to look pretty good as well, doesn't it? Isn't that weird how that works out? Goff off schedule, things can get kind of rough. Ball placement can get kind of rough. But the point is, when things started to get much more snappy and they were much more smooth, there was a good rhythm to it. All of a sudden, some of these passes, the ball placement starts to be on point, and you're like, oh snap, this is what we thought we were getting when we made this trade. And you talked about timing. Timing, look, everybody's seen cover 3, cover 2, cover 4. You've seen them all. This is not new coverage that teams are throwing at you. Everybody's seen it, but it's the timing to attack that certain coverage which sticks out. And what we saw when we dove into film, multiple games, even with Tim Boyle, the Lions were attacking different coverages and where the hole of that coverage would be. They run cover 3. You could see the Lions purposely had guys attacking the holes in what a cover 3 is. I heard a coach say this: every coverage has a weakness, and it does. Man coverage, any kind of zone coverage, every coverage has some sort of weakness. You could drop everybody back, but at that point, the weakness is you're getting absolutely no pressure. And the Lions were able to do that. And Jared Goff, which much more decisive. Tim Boyle knew where to go with the football, and he just made a couple of bad decisions in there. You got the man zone reads on each side of the field, and you can just see the numbers. I mean, Goff was playing as the top quarterback in the National Football League to finish the season. You have your running game doing well. Now, here's the one thing that we're going to lose from this, and here's my really only concern, is that the Lions are kind of losing the run game mind. That's not to say we have to go out and hire somebody, because I think Deuce Staley could possibly be that guy. He served as a head coach at the Senior Bowl, but he really did the same thing that Anthony Lynn did when he became an OC, running back coach for multiple years. That's what Deuce Staley has been. Now, Staley wouldn't be becoming the OC. Right now, he's getting prepped to become a head coach up for the future, so that's awesome. But maybe he could help us in that area where he could become more of like the run game coordinator, because that's what Anthony Lynn was. Even when Anthony Lynn stepped down, he was handling the run game. We haven't heard anything about Ben Johnson was handling the run game. No, he's a pass game background, right? Dan Campbell's a tight end background. So we are losing that, which is a little bit concerning that we don't have that run game background guy. Maybe Deuce steps in that role. Maybe you hire a new run game coordinator, someone to fill that role. Maybe Hank Fraley steps into that role. But I think Deuce has the same background that you saw a guy like Anthony Lynn have when he ultimately became an offensive coordinator.
Been a weakness, in kind of finding that right balance. And so, some of the things that I bring to the table, other guys on the staff may not, and it's just finding the right rhythm and flow of how we can work off of each other from that way. But I think the thing that's really been nice in my career is I've benefited from being around a lot of different play callers, from being a player at North Carolina to a GA at Boston College to my time in Miami and now here. And so from each guy, I've been able to pick something up, both good and bad, things that I would like to emulate and things I wouldn't. And so I think that's really helped me just in terms of expanding my mind.
That's really the only concern I have out of this. But to me, it's kind of a no-brainer. Like, he's proved it. You were successful with it. Why change it up? I think it's very beneficial for the players to get the same guy coming back, knowing what to expect, having that comfortability level, having that stability, giving a guy an opportunity that's earned it. And I think that's how they're going to approach free agency. If you earned it in the season, we're bringing you back. It's like Campbell said after their win. There's a spot for you on his team. There was a spot for him as an offensive coordinator because he earned the role, and we got to see it up close. St. Brown played. I mean, literally, your entire offense got better, and there was rhythm to it. And it kind of makes sense because he is a pass game mind. Anthony Lynn's more of a run game mind. So he may bring you a lot as a run game coordinator, but in the pass game where the Lions were struggling big time, we couldn't find that rhythm. There seemed to be much more rhythm. And again, having some of those pieces was huge. I think that continuity is also very important because just because you go hire a guy that's done it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work. Especially now that you're hiring an OC that's going to do it in a vision of Dan Campbell, means he can trust him, allow him to call plays, and you're all going the same direction. With Anthony Lynn, if there's not that, or whoever your new guy comes in, he may have this great background, but as much as we thought this would be an ideal fit for a guy like Anthony Lynn, if it doesn't work out, then you're kind of stuck with it, right? And it doesn't really make sense. Now it's just a run game that I have a couple concerns about. But, that just is what it is. If you hired a different, run game coordinator that all knew run game, then your pass game would be concerning, right? So it just depends on who you hire. But the run game will be something the Lions have to figure out. And maybe Deuce just becomes the guy that kind of handles a little bit more of that responsibility. We'll see. Either way, Ben Johnson's the Lions OC going forward. We maybe dive into some film and stuff on why Ben Johnson, is the offense coordinator, why they decided to do this and how it worked out. But we've dove into film after games, and I think we hit on it. They can attack coverage. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Congratulations, Ben Johnson, on the Lions' new offense coordinator role. We'll update it when we know if Dan Campbell's going to call plays or not. But until then, thank you for watching, and I'm out.